Well, 50 years ago, the world met in Stockholm. At that time, the world was concerned about what was happening to the human environment, to the way in which we were degrading and polluting into the environment, impacting poverty, impacting the very poorest. And it was the birth of an environmental movement. We've had some good wins, and we've had some not so yet wins. Here at UNEP, we speak about the triple planetary crisis, that crisis of climate change, that crisis of nature loss, and the crisis of pollution and waste. We need to deliver on the triple planetary crisis, because when we do so, we help deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals. That's why in Stockholm we need bold actions. That's why in Stockholm we need everyone under the tent. We have to avoid fragmentation. We have to understand we just have this one world, this one planet. We got to move together. And we have to recommend some basic transformations in energy systems, in food systems, in the way our cities operate, and of course in financial systems, so that together we can reach for that long-term sustainability, and so that the spirit of Stockholm can come together in what we know right now is a divided world. We have only one Earth.
It needs three things: urgency, very clearly, because we have arrived at a time when actions are completely required to be able to address the crises that we face. Not just the planetary crisis, but also the inequity crisis. And so when you put the planetary crisis with inequity crisis in the context of only one Earth, you see why it's so urgent. And the second big issue is that we have to reset. We have a great opportunity because of the COVID recovery to reset the way we are doing our business. So instead of going back to the business as usual in COVID recovery, we have to look at ways in which we align the recovery with a much greater investment in sustainable development. So that's the second one, the resetting. And the third one is accelerating the implementation of the 2030 Agenda, which, as you know, we are in the last 8 years of this, and it requires much more thinking about how to deliver on that, and especially the environmental dimension of 2030 Agenda. So these are the three things that Stockholm needs to deliver on.
No country alone, no country on its own, no matter how rich or how powerful it is, can address this huge existential challenge. And every one of us will be impacted sooner or later. And that we have already been seen. And I think it also needs to bring together those non-governmental entities that are absolutely critical and central to progress in the future.
Stockholm+50 needs to drive strengthened risk governance as a critical step to a healthy planet. We need to scale up action and measure it with the scale of challenging that we are facing. We need a switch in understanding that investing in disaster risk resilience is not a cost. It is an investment in resilience. And this means that investing in nature, investing in greener, risk-informed economies is, again, an investment, not a cost. And it means that we need to prioritize investment in prevention now, because that's the only way we can save lives and livelihoods.
We are not in the right track. So that was 50 years after Stockholm, we find ourselves in that situation. We did not have the same situation in Stockholm, but Stockholm was meant to help us be in the right track. Clearly, we are not. Not everything is wrong, but we are not yet in the right track. So I think we should take a step back and think, what is it that we need to do? I mean, this COVID-19 also should help us reset our relations with nature and rethink how we should plan for the future, for the next 50 years, for the next 100 years. There is no such thing called wastewater. It's only wasted water. So we should not call it waste. We are wasting products. We are wasting gold. We are wasting clothes, we are wasting aluminium and so forth. We should be able to recycle and reuse many of these and put them back to the economy. So I think we have the technology and we can actually make it happen. We don't have to wait until 2050 to make it happen. I think we can start now.
All people everywhere are entitled to live in a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, to stand up for environment without fear of persecution or reprisal, and to exercise their rights to access information, participation, and to access justice in environmental matters. Only a Stockholm+50 process, an outcome that affirms these truths and effectively mobilizes resources, government, and people for the realization of human right to a healthy environment, can deliver a healthy planet for the prosperity of all.
All of us are dependent on this one planet, one Earth, of which all our actions, we need to bear that in mind, then we'll succeed. Currently, our relationship with this one planet is not good. Not surprising, IPBES told us over 1 million species are going into extinction. So if we have no species in this world, it means even human beings who are also part of those species will not be there. What are we going to live on this planet? So one word, our unsustainable relationship with nature needs to change to make sure that this one planet, one Earth, is for us all. And it can only be for us all if we really follow that sustainability path moving forward.
We have to walk the talk. It's great to have all the nice statements, it's great to have, but we need to have clear, bound commitments. Take, for example, the Paris Agreement. If we ask ourselves today, how many countries have come forward with clear commitments? How many countries have implemented those commitments that they have promised? We need to see this across the board, across all these environmental, okay, let's call it the three pillars, the three planetary pillars now. Climate change, biodiversity, and pollution. We need to see commitment. Now, biodiversity is discussing the new framework for biodiversity. We cannot just leave it as a framework. There has to be concrete commitment and concrete action by governments for us to be able to move forward, because each one step taken by each government is 200 steps. I'm assuming there's 200 countries here towards a better planet.
We need from the Stockholm+50 a clear roadmap, how to accelerate action on the ground, how to deliver the Sustainable Development Goal, and how to achieve national climate commitment of the Paris Agreement, the new urban agenda. How can we emerge from the global health crisis caused by COVID-19 pandemic? So we need mechanism for adequate funding, technology transfer, political commitment and leadership that is much needed, and also partnership to pursue climate change adaptation and also climate mitigation and emission reduction. So I think this is very, very important to me, is that no more declaration, but we want declare action. Declared action. Same spelling, but no more declaration, no more resolution, but we want an action and very clear roadmap and very clear deliverable and also very clear timeline, and then clear monitoring and also the evaluation. That's what I expect from the Stockholm+50.
It is a reminder that it's time for action, but it's never too late. And we do have the ability to do things that perhaps back 4 years ago was, or 50 years ago, was far more difficult. Today, and I see it very clearly, again, from a scientific and technical perspective, the things that we can do now to protect the environment are far more efficient, fast, and effective than they would have been in 1972. So yes, I look at it with concern, but with a lot of engagement and optimism.
It needs fundamentally to deliver consensus. Simple. It needs to deliver an agreement that everyone is pulling in the same direction, that the vision that is going to be pursued is a singular one, and that there is agreement on how that is going to be effected by all countries.
Environment damage nowadays, once it happened, is circulate around the globe, around all oceans. So we cannot escape environment damage from any kind of impacts related to the environment. So I believe that the campaign for nowadays climate change and ocean issues, I believe that is very meaningful. So we have to work together, public sector, private sector, doesn't matter. We have to work together, collaborate each other. IMO will continue enhance our effort in participating these efforts in terms of only one Earth, which is no substitute for it.
Stockholm+50 needs to deliver the agenda for the future. And this agenda needs to be one of integration of nature as part of the solutions for all the challenges that we have. It needs to bring, show the opportunities that investing in nature, investing in sustainability is the way, that we are going to be able to have a better planet and better life for all. And I think that Stockholm+50 also needs to bring more equity, equity among countries, equity within countries, and gender equality.
We know so much now about what are the consequences, what are the likely consequences, what do we already see, what is necessary. So it's more a question of how to do it and how to scale up action internationally, globally, but also at the local level, of course, to address that. In the first round, to reach our 2030 agenda, which will be a very important part of the way, but of course, this relates to the overall the Paris Agreement and so on. So I think that's because if we just come out with another nice declaration of goodwills that's been heard before, let's make it as concrete commitment as possible.
Stockholm+50 needs to continue to bring together key stakeholders and promote cooperation. It needs to advance global commitment for increased climate finance. And also it should aim to promote the application of international environmental law and international water law for a water-secure world. Stockholm+50 needs to keep pushing the urgency for action for ensuring a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment.
Only one Earth means we only have one wildlife, and we have to take care of it, and we have to make sure that everybody has a good understanding that we need to be able to make sure that this international trade is legal, sustainable, and traceable, and that we all have a responsibility to do this for future generations.
Providing a fertile ground for cooperation, a clear path for financing green innovation as a means to scaling up while providing capacity building and technical transfer, knowledge transfer, so that every country in the world understands that is a joint responsibility to deliver sustainable air travel.
My one wish for Stockholm+50 would be a renewed commitment to what the negotiators agreed to 50 years ago. As I said, they put out in a very articulate way what the current concerns were at the time, current concerns, and what needed to happen. And 50 years later, while we've seen lots of progress on environmental issues and consciousness around the environment, the science shows that we're actually doing a lot worse than we were 50 years ago. So when you have a situation where climate has grown and we're reaching very scary numbers in terms of the temperature changes and what that means for our future and for the natural systems that we rely on. And when we see the level of destruction of biodiversity around the world, we don't even know what the full implications of that will be. That shows that we have not fundamentally got the message right. So my hope at Stockholm is that there be a realization, a collective realization that we have failed Stockholm, and we can commit to getting it right for the next 50 years.